Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be looking at a different rum from a different part of the world because I do actually enjoy looking at rums that are off the beaten track and from some interesting parts of the globe that make rum, but that we don't know enough about. This one is actually from Thailand, and it's called the Naga Indochinese 10-year-old rum. Obviously, it's made from Thailand, and the backstory is really very interesting, and it's a bit long. So I'm going to go into some basic notes first, and then I'm going to talk about the backstory there so that you can get the review first. Um, Now, this is a branded rum from Thailand. It's not actually a distillery by the name of Naga, and it's what it is. The rum is supplied from one of the many distilleries. I think there's about 12 of them that are owned by the quasi-monopoly spirits combine called Thai-Bev. They also, I think, make the Mekong and the Sangsang brand of rums, which I've looked at before. And the label in the photograph that is accompanying this review incorporates many different elements. There's the word Naga, for example, which refers to a mythical water serpent in South Asian folklore. And the rum is one of these upscale Siam editions range that is made from Thai sugarcane molasses. It's distilled 5 times on a column still, which leads you to ask, like, what, once wasn't enough? And then it is aged for 10 years in country in 200-liter charred ex-bourbon barrels. Now, I did look at the website and I did do some research around the place, and I did try to contact the founder, and there's a lot of barrel recombination and topping up that is being referred to, which the brand rep at the Berlin Rum Festival, where I first tried this thing, told me was called like dynamic aging. But, I suggest that it's a little bit more like fractional blending, or sort of like a primitive or ersatz Solera system. The age seems, however, to be a true 10-year-old. And when it's done, the rum, that's this one, I've got 3 of them, so I'm going to do 1, then 2, then 3, is at 40% for this particular edition. There's a 46% here, and then there's a foolproof edition over here, which is actually quite interesting. Leaving aside the local materials of origin then, right, it is very much a product that, when you consider how it's made, is in line with others around the world, a blend of a particular age, column still, standard strength. Now, I don't say that with any kind of particular snark, just to place the rum a little bit more firmly in its niche. Because even though it's branded as something quite special, it's not some kind of ultra special limited edition with some sort of sharp hook to pique your interest and pick it off the shelf. But it's a completely commercial product that hits a lot of the sweet spots at the same time. The age, the price, the still, the origin, the strength. I have no direct particular evidence for this, but I do actually suspect that it is the best selling rum of this particular line. And let's pour it right out, and we'll get straight into it before I get into the backstory here. 10 years old. Okay, well, that's interesting. All right. Well, it's easy to see why it's popular, right? And it is. I've seen it sold in quite a number of different places around the world. So you do get aromas of vanilla and coconut shavings right off the bat. That really actually kind of dominates the nose, and it's very gentle, 40%. You're not going to get something very different. There's some cinnamon, there's some sandalwood, and a whiff of candied oranges. It's very light, very easygoing, soft, and, well, you could almost call it effervescent. Not a lot more to go on this thing. The palate. Okay, so 40% isn't going to tear the roof of your mouth off, or scrape your tongue raw or anything like that. It's very smooth. It's very soft. It's medium sweet, and again, there's those vanilla notes and the coconut shavings that lead the charge. There's some sugar, brown sugar, I think, and okay, this maybe really is snark, but if you dial this down to 25%, you might actually have a Malibu here, right? Perhaps not as much coconut there. Okay, so there's also some woody and tannic notes that are lurking in the background, which is nice. Some bitter coffee grounds, orange rind to cut it all. The finish is light, it's easy, it's here now, it's gone in a flash. There's nothing new here, but it's clean and very easy sipping, and it doesn't taste like it was doctored at all. I did actually test it at the time, and as far as I'm concerned, yeah, no, it's clean. And given the person who made it, which I'll get into, I don't think that's something that to be aware of. But here's the thing. I do actually mean what I said about it being a commercial product, because there's very little that would make you think that it's particularly special, even less that would lead you to reference Thailand at all. Now, if you remember, Will Herkinger and John Gulla, in one of their episodes, they tasted the Shakara rum blind. And I think it was John who said that, this is a Thailand rum. He literally could tell that it was. This isn't the same thing. If you close your eyes and taste this and smell it and so on, you could say that this is just about any mid-range rum from Panama, the Dominican Republic, or Nicaragua. And indeed, when you look at the production stats, it seems to be much more in keeping with the Spanish/Latin/Cuban style of rum making. Now, that's not a criticism per se. It's just an observation. And because I have more rums from here in the queue, that's these, I know that more is coming. But for now, for this 10-year-old rum, I would take it as a pleasant and quaffable sundowner. I'd pretty much rate this at about 76, 77 points. And, if I was running around Asia and I was just looking for a rum to try to take it easy without worrying how much it would cost or how, interesting it is, I would pretty much go with this one. All right. So that's pretty much my review. 77 points, very straightforward rum. There's nothing particularly special about it in spite of its place of origin and its tropical aging and all the rest of it, but it is nice. It is nice. So let's go with that. All right, let's give you the historical background. So the label on the bottle refers to it as being the Naga. And the line of rums has other words on it that require some explanation. For example, Indochinese. That seems straightforward enough. And historically, linguistically, and culturally, it refers to the Southeast Asian countries like Burma, which is now called Myanmar, Thailand, Malaya, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, where Chinese and Indian influences in both language and culture melded into a synthesis of their own. And then there were further political and geographical subdivisions like French Indochina, which is the latter three, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, entering the lexicon over time. Now, Thailand, which was called Siam, or the Kingdom of Siam until 1932, and that's also on the brand's label, is somewhat unusual in that it was never actually a colony of either of the great colonizing nations of the 19th century. Right? This is, even though they exerted significant political power over Thailand, it's over the Kingdom of Siam at the time, whether it's through the ceding of territory, through unequal treaties, through legal and trading concessions. I mean, that was kind of like standard for that time, and it's just as bad then as we think of it now, right? But the thing is, in 1896, there was an agreement between France and Britain where they kind of said that Thailand would serve as a buffer between them, so that neither one would control it and their empires, as it were, would be separated. And that allowed Thailand to, or again, I keep saying Thailand, but you know what I mean, the Kingdom of Siam, to preserve some level of autonomy in the way these other countries did not, at least to some extent. Okay, so that's historical, right? Now, that leads me to the company that makes this rum. Now, strictly speaking, there isn't, right? Naga is a brand name, not a company, run by a chap, I think he's French, called Sébastien Follot. Now, he had worked for Bardenay, which is the La Martiniquaise group, until 2007, and then at a brand development agency until 2011, after which he pivoted to being a consultant and an importer for rum brands. He did, in point of fact, help introduce Optimus from the Dominican Republic and Chihuatan from El Salvador, I think, these brands into European markets. But in 2012, he felt the itch to create a brand of its own. And this is something that I see happen quite often with people who are very deeply involved in the spirits industry. So he felt that he wanted to do something of his own, and he registered the name Naga. It was unique, it was easy to pronounce, it was easy to spell, and importantly, nobody else had registered it up to that point. So then he contracted with the largest maker of rums in Thailand, which is Thai Bev, that's a near monopoly, which has as I said, some 12 distilleries, of which 4 make rums. They make other spirits, of course, like whiskey, vodka, brandies, or whatever for the local market and so on, including the Sang Som and the Mekong, as I've mentioned. Now, it took a while to get all this off the ground. And then in 2014, Sebastian just had the ground cut out from under him when the supplier abruptly canceled the initial order. Now, Sebastian pivoted to releasing, interestingly enough, some Indonesian araks instead. Now, these can't be called rums by various definitions because there's some element of fermented rice in the blend, right? But he does have some Indonesian rums as well, which I have to try at some point in time. these really sold really nicely. They were called the Java Reserve and the Pearl of Jakarta and Anggur and so on. But these sold well enough for his reputation to increase. And by 2019, whatever issues ThaiBev or whatever, whoever the supplier, intermediate supplier was, they were resolved. And the use of Thai rums was greenlit. But there were codicils. The contract stated that ThaiBev's name couldn't be mentioned, that Thailand couldn't be mentioned, and all sorts of other restrictions, in the literature and the advertising and the labeling and so on. And this is why you see the Kingdom of Siam on the bottle label, and this is why you see Indochina, but you see no mention of anything else. You've got to go back and dive into the literature to really understand that. Now, that restriction apparently was lifted in around 2023, and now it's kind of like really nice to, it's possible to put all these various restricted words on labels and the literature and so on. But at the time when this came out, it wasn't. Now, this one came out in around 2022, and I think I tasted it a year later. But I have managed to get some samples, and this is what I'm tasting here. And that's pretty much all I've got to go on so far. So let me just recap very briefly the bits and pieces about the rum itself. I thought it was okay, nothing particularly special. It's decent enough for what it is. It's affordable, it's approachable, and you're not going to be too unhappy about it. And if you want something stronger, then just wait a little bit, because I'm going to go to the other two in the next review or two. That's it for today, guys and ladies, and I do hope you have a really nice day. It's a good start to the week, and I'm going to enjoy trying the others. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.